everyone, and welcome back to Always Watching. My name is Hamza Ali. For those of you new to this channel, I review all things movie and TV. So if you like what you hear, subscribe, comment, and like down below. So today we're talking about Creed 3. I apologize, it's late. I was supposed to watch it when it came out, but I just got caught up in things. And so I finally got to watch it, and I'm so sad I didn't watch it earlier. I don't think I've had this much fun since Top Gun Maverick. I felt like I was watching a movie and then several pay-per-view events within the same movie. You have to see it on the big screen, otherwise you don't get that hype, you don't get that anticipation. And so briefly, the film follows Adonis, whose thriving career and family life is disrupted when childhood friend and former boxing prodigy returns. And this movie is why you go to the movies. So first off, I have to say, Jonathan Majors, the chef's kiss, I have nothing bad to say about him. He had a great part, and he ate it up. He left nothing on the table, and he's becoming quite the character actor. And he has a movie coming out called Magazine Dreams, and I can't wait to see this. But he just makes everything better. When he's on screen, individually, I connected with him, and I felt like he was a great adversary to Michael B. Jordan's character because they balanced each other out quite well, and this was not easy to do. So Jonathan plays Damian, Adonis's childhood friend who was sent away after a fight gone horribly wrong. He returns to Adonis's life with one goal in mind, which is to make up for lost time. And growing up, he strongly believed that he was supposed to have the life that Adonis ended up having. Right, so we get glimpses into their childhood, and it seems like Damian was quite the fighter. And so he spent the better part of his time in prison for nearly 2 decades, watching Adonis live the life that he felt was meant for him. And this left him hungry, angry, and just ready to fight, right? He is like a angry dog out of a cage, right? He wants to get to it. So in terms of his acting, again, he was superb. He makes everything better. Anytime he's in something, he elevates it to such a higher level. And he really felt like someone who was behind bars for 18 years. The way he speaks, right? There's always a double meaning. His thank yous are never really thank yous. The stuff he's able to communicate without saying a word, but we're able to understand him is wonderful. His body language, the way that he's constantly fighting self-control and no control, right? I could see the roller coaster of emotions inside of him. And this is a testament to how great of a job that he was doing. And his whole thing is that not only he's not here for a charity, right? He doesn't just want a shot, he feels entitled to it, right? In his mind, this is something that he deserves, and he's trying to get back on track, right? He wants to, his destiny has been put on pause, and now he's anxious to get back up there. And you feel his anxiety, right? He just wants to get right to work. And this is something that you feel like he's been thinking about for 2 decades while he was in jail. I appreciated how we never disliked Damian, or at least I didn't. I got his motivations, I sympathized with him, I empathized with him, and I got it. I didn't know whether I was supposed to root for this guy or root against him, but I understood him. And I felt him, he's supposed to be a villain, but he never really feels like a villain. I think the biggest thing I appreciated with Jonathan's performance is the nuance. He's angry, but he's more angry with himself. And you could see that in the film. He kind of uses Adonis as a punching bag, but even this is a struggle. He's really fighting with himself. He wants someone to blame for what has happened to him, but he kind of knows also that a lot of it was on him. And you could see this tension inside him. You could see him fighting himself throughout. And I felt the fact that I could even see this nuance, again, is just fantastic acting. In terms of Michael B. Jordan, so first I'll talk about his performance and then his directing, because I think both were very solid. So in terms of his performance, it was solid. You meet him at the beginning of the film, and he seems like a man pretty content. He's very forward moving, right? At no point in time is he looking back or thinking back to anything. He seems pretty content. He doesn't feel like a man that has anything to prove. He just feels at best very bored, right? He just seems kind of going through the motions. And I was impressed by how his family felt like a family, and him and Tessa felt like a real couple. Like you felt it, and I felt this was very well done. And watching him at the beginning of the film, pretty content, pretty chill, and then Damian walks back into his life. It's like a Pandora's box has opened up, and suddenly, like, he's not forward moving anymore. He's paralyzed. And this paralysis is mirrored in both their characters, because as soon as Damian pops up, all he sees is his childhood friend. He doesn't see someone who'd been locked up for 18 years, and same with Damian. He doesn't see Adonis as, like this world champion that has lived his own life. He just sees him as his friend that, used to help him out with these fights. So as soon as his friend comes back into his life, he's paralyzed, right? And he begins to develop this imposter syndrome. And he's kind of wondering, like, damn, like, do I deserve all this? Would any of this have happened if Damian hadn't gone to jail? And it just sends him, like, spiraling. And you can see, like, the roller coaster of emotions inside of him. And I felt this was very well played. Like, I could see it. They didn't explain it. They didn't have to explain it. I could just see it in their body language. I could see it in their vibe. I could see it in everything. And so Michael's struggle, and I think his directing does a good job of articulating this, is that his struggle actually is with himself. It is kind of advertised as a movie about, like, egos. And the directing is able to manage these egos very well, because, as hard as these two men try to project all their sort of frustrations out on each other, they're struggling, right? They want to hate the person in front of them, but they can't. And so ultimately these two men, their biggest enemy is just themselves. And the directing really helped communicate that. So going back to the directing, it was solid. It was solid for a few reasons. First, he relied on a few cliches, which at first I was like, that's an exaggeration. Like, there's something that happens in the movie that you're like, huh? But it actually does work, and I'll explain why it works. And it doesn't actually take away from the film. In fact, it sets up the film quite nicely. So the way Michael B. Jordan directs each fight, as I said, it feels like a pay-per-view event within the movie. Like, the first fight is very, traditional, and, like, you're getting hyped, and you're like, who's gonna win? And, like, you're kind of on that pins and needles. And then the way he directs the last fight, the one that we're kind of all waiting for, like, the vibe is totally different. And the vibe is different for many reasons. So first off, when Damian comes back, Adonis doesn't take him seriously, right? He wants to help him, but he doesn't really know how. So he's kind of like going through the motions. He's trying to work out his past life. Like, his friend has made it clear, like Damian has made it clear that, he wants a chance, and he's not here for a handout. And so Adonis wants to give him the chance, but in the time period it's taking him to think, Damian isn't really a man willing to wait. And so when Damian creates the opportunity he needed to force Adonis to give him what he wants, Adonis's reaction was quite interesting, because he was just like, oh, okay, perfect, like, God willing, like, I guess everything worked out, like, I guess I have to give you this chance. Because he was looking for some sign or something to, like, give his friend a chance. So he didn't think anything of it, even though the minute it happens, that it was a setup, right? But this doesn't occur to Adonis, because he's so in his own head. He's so, like, trying to unpack his own trauma that he doesn't really see anything around him. And the way Damian set up the fight at first was a bit cliched, as I said, but it really works, because this is a man that everyone's been, like, sleeping on, right? He's made himself very clear, to the point where he told him, like, I've made myself very clear. So, when he does actually end up creating his own opportunity, it makes sense that Adonis doesn't see it, because he doesn't see his friend for who he's become. He still sees him as the person he left behind. And so I actually do think it worked in developing their characters, because they're both kind of paralyzed, right? Adonis doesn't see through him until it's too late, right? So the minute Damian comes back into his life, Adonis doesn't really address the fact that this man had been writing him letters for many years. He doesn't discuss it with his mother. And not only that, regardless of whether or not he got these letters, why didn't he keep in touch with his friend? Like, this is something that he doesn't want to deal with. He's not ready to deal with it. And by the time he's ready to deal with it, it's too late, right? Like, had he actually confronted his mother early on, when he saw Damian, had he seen the photos, he would have been able to clock what Damian was doing early on, right? Like, he would have been able to kind of be like, oh, this is a setup. And then he probably wouldn't have given him the fight. what he failed to understand about his friend is that he's been waiting for a long time and he's pretty much done waiting. And by the time he clocks into this, by the time he's ready to confront his mother, by the time he's ready to see these photos, he's, Damian is world champion, right? Like, so I do think the sort of cliche he used to speed up the process, it does work, right? It works because it's like, how could you miss something so obvious? But again, he's stuck in his head that he's not able to see anything. And so in terms of like this lead up to this big fight, so one of the things Michael does very well is the fight scene. So the first pay-per-view event, where Damian gets his shot at the title, it's very like hype, right? It's exactly what we expect. The entrances are lit, and it's a fight. It's a fight to the death. And so you're watching it, and you kind of know that Damian's gonna win, and you just don't know how he's gonna win. So it kind of gives the viewers that feeling that you're actually watching like a pay-per-view fight. So I thought that was well done. And then as we get to the build up to the last fight, his direction changes. And the reason his direction changes is that we're no longer focused on the outcome of the fight. We're focused on maintaining the emotional investment that the audience has built into Damian and Adonis. Like, at no point in time are you fully against anyone. And I think the way he directs it up until the final really helps with that. So, by the time you get to this final fight, you're invested in them as like individuals, and then you're invested in their friendship as well. And I thought this was very, very hard to do. And, watching them train even before the fight, like kind of mirroring each other in every aspect, was super interesting because, again, you don't really know who to root for because both of them are very hardworking. Both of them are very deserving of it, right? Like, they both take it very seriously. And so you're kind of watching them both train and you're like, I don't know who's going to win this. I don't know who even deserves to win this, right? Like, I don't know what to think anymore. To this final fight, and at first it's kind of set up as the previous fight was, as this pay-per-view event. But then the longer these rounds go on, he takes these kind of he makes these artistic choices that actually kind of draw you away from the fight and into their heads, right? Like, you kind of start to see that although they're fighting each other, they're more so fighting themselves. And I appreciated that because it doesn't distract. It actually makes you invested in both of them. And it's quite sad because in terms of Damian, like, he may have lost, but he certainly proved, like, had he not gone to jail, he probably would have been an elite athlete, right? Like, he took the shot, but he was able to make the most of it. And Adonis, on the other hand, has this severe imposter syndrome, and he has this guilt where it's almost like he wants his friend to beat him, but at the same time, he wants to win. And so in a way, like, they both won. Like, I like that feeling where it's like both, it wasn't like, okay, well, both of you lost. It's like, both of you won. You both proved yourself in your own way, and you were both able to kind of rid yourself of these imposters, all these demons that they were dealing with. And the way the intensity, like, you could tell as the fight was going on and on and on, as hard as they tried to like hate each other, they just couldn't, right? Because they were just kind of paralyzed in time. Like, it was very hard for them to dismiss, their bond and their friendship. And you as an audience are like, damn, like, can y'all just shake hands and just be friends, like. So I think his stylistic choices helped us with that. It helped us get into their heads. It helped us to see, like, kind of each person's sort of perspective, and then it helped us kind of figure out why they're trying so hard to, because they're trying hard to find the motivation to kill each other, but they don't hate each other like that, so again, I think the artistic choices really helped with that. It might have taken you out of the fight, but at least it kind of compensates for that, so that by the end of the movie you feel like they both kind of did their thing. Impressive thing about this film is the fact that in a very short time period, we understood both these men and that we were able to kind of grow with them. So I think Michael never lost track of, like, really it's a story about, these two men and all these demons they're fighting within, like, inside each other. So I thought his direction, like, it allowed us to kind of keep our focus on the character and not like the spectacle of a fight. And that I appreciated very much so. Like, I felt like it was a very, very, very interesting way of doing things. And so overall, it was a solid movie. I was so pleasantly surprised. I couldn't believe how fun it was. I couldn't believe how good it was. You guys let me know what you think, and until next time.
Where are you?